Thanks. Thanks for the kind introduction. And also thanks for calling me an expert. I don't think I am, but thank you. I'll try. So today I'll be talking about, my presentation will be more general. This is kind of like a phenomenon that's really taking the field of women's health by storm. Um, this is my topic is about, to be more precise, compounded bioidentical hormone therapy. Many of you are familiar that there are regular pharmacies. You go to CVS, Walgreens, all your hospital, University of Utah hospital pharmacy. However, there are many compounded pharmacies where the goal is, if the drug is on shortage, and with minimum ingredients, and if it is easy to make, these compounded pharmacies can make them. Or if there is a serious adverse event for an excipient that a patient cannot take in the marketed formulation, then a physician can use a compounding pharmacy and ask them to prepare in a similar way. So these compounding pharmacies are FDA recognized and FDA monitored, and there are two different types. One is called a 503A, which is basically they cannot manufacture, or they cannot produce en masse. It should be like a patient specific, and they cannot really transport any product across the state lines. So in Utah, in Florida. However, there is another type of pharmacy called 503B. These are outsourcing pharmacies, and this is basically, FDA started approving these mainly because of severe drug shortages we have all of a sudden. And to help them with these 503B compounding pharmacies, to kind of like to be able to make some of these IV parenteral drugs and any drugs that are in shortage, and then with FDA's monitoring. That's the whole purpose. However, these compounding pharmacy field is, quote unquote, taking advantage of women's health and really um, doing something that is not appropriate. It will come under the misinformation kind of area. And my goal today is to kind of explain what's going on behind the scenes, and what is FDA doing, and what ACOG guidelines are, what's the clinical consensus in general, and kind of what if you as a healthcare professional, if you come across someone who is currently taking those, as a healthcare professional, what best advice you can give to them. So that's kind of like my goal. And sorry, I forgot to mention, I would like to thank organizers for inviting me to this talk. I was probably referred by Dr. Nicole Mihalopoulos. She is my colleague, and she and I always have, that's our only topic that we talk about. After we talk about our kids, we talk about all these, like these pellets and what's going on. So thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to share my thoughts on this. And how do we advance slides is the just this. Okay, perfect. So, if you travel around the United States, it's very hard not to drive at least 20 miles on a highway without these billboards, especially this one. You will see like everywhere these billboards, and this particular compounded bioidentical hormone industry is really like increasing, and they are just growing everywhere. And the consensus is very, it's kind of the misinformation and the promotion these compounding pharmacies are doing is very unethical from a medical perspective. However, unfortunately, the main problem I have with them is, initially they started that these are good alternatives for hormone replacement therapy, because some of them will have, like, progesterone has peanut oil. So if you have peanut allergy, we will make it without peanut oil. It started like that. But then slowly the influencers, movie actresses, they all came in, and then they started saying, because these compounded hormones are from plant sources, they are safer. So that went for a while, and then it next stage of craziness right now. What's going on is the aspect is the sentiment now is these are better than FDA approved medications, because FDA approved medications, you open the package insert, box warning this, box warning that. Whoa, it's very scary. But nobody's going to put a box. Do you see any box warnings here? It's like nice and smiling women. So because of all this, it's becoming, and that's very dangerous, and it has to be considered seriously, and something has to be done. However, it's a very this became a very issue. This became a very contentious issue, and the strong lobby of the compounding pharmacies is coming into picture and things like that. So anyway, with this slide, I just want to say that they are everywhere. There are many clinics popping everywhere. So general considerations, compounded bioidentical hormone therapy treatments. Basically, they are your structurally, when you take chemical, it's exactly the same as synthetic or semi-synthetic hormones that are FDA approved. The only difference is the active ingredient, for example, progesterone or DHEA. That's a very popular compounded one, dihydroepiandrosterone. Structurally, these are exactly same. However, they are extracted from plant sources like soy, cactus, because these are kind of secondary metabolites in plants, right? So they go through an extraction process rather than synthetic process or semi-synthetic process that is usually involved in FDA approved active ingredients. So those are, and then the compounding pharmacies obtain those active ingredients from these natural sources, and because they are natural, FDA has no control over them. Orrin Hatch Act or Hatch-Waxman Act, our beloved Senator Orrin Hatch. So this act kind of like said, if it is natural sources, no FDA oversight. That's the reason why you see all the essential oils and all these things down in Salt Lake, in Utah, if you drive down south. So they kind of like oversee, but chemically they are exactly the same, even though they are not synthesized. So in the United States, approximately 2.5 million women use compounded bioidentical hormones. And then annual global market revenue is around $2 to $9 billion. So very high global market for these. Sorry, not global, in terms of like United States, and these active ingredients coming from other countries into the United States. So these are manufactured by traditional and outsourcing compounding pharmacies. Those are the ones I was talking about in the beginning, the 503A and 503B. So your 503A is a traditional one where you're compounding it to individual patient, and 503B is when you can prepare them in batches and cross them across the state lines. So unfortunately, there is no clinical evidence. However, these compounding pharmacies are promoting it, that they are safe and efficacious when compared to FDA approved hormone replacement treatments, and this is very alarming. The basic tenet of Food and Drug Administration is to make sure a drug product is safe and efficacious, and those are completely overlooked here. So what did FDA do then? So FDA in 2018, it asked NASEM, which is National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, to mainly look into this. I will talk more about the findings of NASEM in 2018, and around 2021, they provided their report. Very scathing report, by the way. And then American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which you are very familiar. And they published a clinical consensus, probably I think 2023, on compounded bioidentical hormone treatment. In that, they looked at the NASEM report, as well as with they did their own literature study from 2000 to around think 2021. Until 2021, they looked at all primary secondary literatures, very extensive literature search. I'll be happy to forward both reports, if you're interested. So what did those two major agencies recommended? So first of all, I want to talk about what NASEM did. So they basically, what they did was they gathered approximately 15 to 20 experts in women health and drug product formulators and chemists, and they had a wide variety of experts from all over the world. In fact, in that committee, there were a couple from Australia, a couple from UK. So it's best experts you can find. Germany, best experts you can find on hormones and drug product formulations and compounding and women's health in general. And they looked at anything that is possible in terms of getting any evidence. So they included obviously clinical trials that were published. They obtained data from the FDA, FAERS, what kind of adverse events were reported, and then they met with lot of patients who are currently taking these compounded bioidentical hormones and who were very happy with them. And then they did a lot of surveys and a lot of town hall kind of meetings with these patients who are taking. And they went through they met like 4 times every year and went through all the data. And so basically what they recommended was, I don't want, because of interest of time, I don't want to go into much details, but again, I'll be happy to share the whole report. It's very interesting to read the methodology of how they went, because it's a huge responsibility on their shoulders, right? Like this, something that you cannot even consider. I once tried to order testosterone for one of my research projects, and the synthetic one, and it's a controlled substance, and I had to go through like so much paperwork. But you can just go to some compounding pharmacy and you can get testosterone like how many milligrams you want, because it is natural. So anyway, the recommendations, the first one, they said we have to restrict the use of compounded bioidentical hormone treatments. The only time they recommend these hormone treatments have to be compounded is when a patient really needs them. Like, some FDA approved, some component, or even the hormone itself, synthetic hormone itself, or any inactive ingredient is, patient is not compatible, then, if you run out of all options, then probably you can ask them to get a compounded preparation. Again, the peanut oil is an example, and that is something you can go to a compounding pharmacy and get. And then assessment of difficulty to compound, product variability. So they need to, so this is a little of compounding jargon you probably not might be familiar. So FDA doesn't allow compounding pharmacies to compound whatever they want, because a pharmaceutical company spends a lot of money in research and development, and and then a compounding pharmacy is just making it in their compound. That's not it has patent infringement issues, right? So FDA controls what can be compounded. Like, is there a shortage, nobody in the United States is manufacturing, then they will allow. Or if there is real need to compound, because they do that, because the product variability when you compound from different compounding pharmacies is very high, because they don't follow the same stringent manufacturing guidelines that FDA put forth that pharmaceutical companies follow. It's a whole, it's called good manufacturing practices, and they follow the Six Sigma guidelines for quality assurance, and to make sure if 1 million tablets are prepared in a day or so, all of them will have very similar product structures. So those things are not possible in a compounding pharmacy. So they were recommending, unless that particular hormone is placed in difficult to compound, if they are placed in difficult to compound, if they notice that there is huge variability from pharmacy to pharmacy, then they will place it in a difficult to compound, and they should not compound that. And improve education for prescribers and pharmacists who are promoting compounding bioidentical hormone treatments. Even now, these compounded bioidentical hormone treatments are not promoted by people who are not healthcare professionals. These are promoted by MDs and pharmacists. So the compounding pharmacies are owned by pharmacists. The MDs are prescribing them. It's kind of like more of a designer type situation where you walk into these clinics, they will take a sample and they will say, okay, your testosterone is low. And then they will put in, they will say, okay, go to the pharmacist, and the pharmacist will do some calculations and say, this is the dose will be good for you. And this is exactly how they tell you. If you go to your testosterone, if you go to a doctor, and get the FDA approved testosterone, you cannot change the dose. This way, we are personalizing all these things, which is absolutely, there is no basis to prove those things. So I think the committee was very angry that these MDs and pharmacists, who are supposed to be healthcare professionals, who are supposed to be telling the right thing, are not saying the right thing to the patients. And they felt like there has to be a lot of educational programs to educate them, to make sure they are doing the right thing when it comes to health of women. So in addition to those three main recommendations, the committee has a lot of other secondary recommendations, like, we need to know the pharmacokinetics of the drug product that they are compounding, which we have no idea. They make anything under the earth, like they make lozenges, they make vaginal troches, they make nasal sprays, they make creams, they make pellets that you can put under the skin. Like they just put something, and how much of the drug is releasing, how much is getting across through the biological membranes, especially when you're talking about more sensitive membranes like vaginal mucosa. It's a very complex interface that human has with systemic circulation, and these things matter. And how you prepare the product has a lot of influence on it, and all those things. They're recommending that there has to be some information on that. And then coming to ACOG clinical consensus. So ACOG was more in terms of from what clinical evidence is out there. So ACOG flatly said that no evidence to support marketing claims of safe and effectiveness. So all the marketing claims that these compounding pharmacies are saying that this is safe, then FDA approved formulation, there is no evidence whatsoever. They says compounding bioidentical hormone treatment should not be prescribed when FDA approved formulation exists. And then patients must be counseled on the lack of FDA approval of compounded bioidentical hormone treatments. I'm 100% sure that many of patients who are currently taking these compounded bioidentical hormone treatments don't realize that these are not FDA approved, because an MD is prescribing it, and a pharmacist is making it. So they are like, oh, looks like I'm in good hands. It's not some multi-level marketing person from your church is asking you to do it, right? So these are You're basically you're going to an actual facility, and none of this counseling is taking place. Some of them are doing, but not all, and it has to be mandated in terms of like it's not FDA controlled. And one more thing that ACOG recommended is high quality placebo controlled randomized trials for these compounded medications are needed to support those claims, those exorbitant claims that they are making that these are best and lifesavers and will increase your life. Initially, it started with smaller women based symptoms, and in terms of like postmenopausal issues and vaginal atrophy and things like that. But now it went into a cosmetic type, oh, your hair will be better, your teeth will look better, your libido will increase, these kind of things. It became more of a lifestyle medication, and it's going into these hands of life coaches, and they are kind of like getting it. It's becoming very dangerous. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, yeah. Was that? Oh, yeah. I thought my conclusion slide was, I could not see it. Anyway, so in conclusion, basically, the use of compounded bioidentical hormone treatment is rapidly increasing, and there are a lot of reports on adverse events and all the issues that these hormones can cause, like Mackenzie and Camille talked about. There are a lot of reports. However, because of lack of um, control on these compounded pharmacies, and this blowing of uh, the use, and unfortunately there is lack of trust in authority that we have seen. So I was reading a very interesting article published by Columbia University on this topic, and they coined a term, pharmaceutical messianism. So this is when word of mouth or some influential person says that some drug is an elixir to treat everything, and it just snowballs. And unfortunately, they were saying that this compounded bioidentical hormone treatment went into sucked into that cycle of pharmaceutical messianism, and it's blown out of proportion because of the influencers, and a lot of celebrities are endorsing it, social media influencers and things like that. So I think as healthcare professionals, the only thing we can do is, if somebody is taking it, educate them that you don't know where it is coming from, because I try to trace the sources of these, the active ingredient. When they say they have estradiol, when they say they have progesterone, when they say they have testosterone, where is it coming from? What plant? It's coming from plant source, from soybean, but where it is being manufactured, are they manufacturing according to good manufacturing practices, things like that. Or with these chemical substances, hormones especially, there are a lot of physicochemical characteristics that has to be followed throughout the life cycle of the production. Like for example, polymorphism. These all these chemical substances exist in different polymorphic structures, and they have to follow. So again, I think one thing we can do is, having at least some kind of bioavailability based studies. They compound so many testosterone capsules for menopause women. That's a huge market, giving testosterone as a capsule form, and you take it orally. How much is going into blood circulation, nobody knows. There is no, not at least efficacy studies, they are very complicated, very expensive. At least proof of concept that the bioavailability, whatever, they are saying that this vaginal troche will release X amount of drug, but we don't know. So at least some kind of assessment of, that's what they do for generic drugs. So for generic drugs, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. To get an approval for generic drug, all you need to do is take 20 human beings, give them your drug, and then take the pharmacokinetics, and then give them the branded drug and get the pharmacokinetics. And if pharmacokinetics match, you're good. So at least some kind of bioavailability studies or some kind of control needs to be, some kind of evidence needs to be there. Thank you.